I'd like to talk today about one of the topics that's very much in the news and very much talked about in terms of classroom practices, particularly with regard to diversity in the classroom and bringing up topics of racism in the classroom. Certainly, this critical race theory issue has been talked about a lot. And so it's good to take a look at it and see what it's all about and see how we can get a kind of a harmonious way forward about it that respects everybody's point of view. The New York State Regents have issued some guidance on this issue, which I think might be helpful in terms of clarifying some of the concerns that parents have about how it should be presented to their children. They acknowledge, first of all, that racism has played a significant role in America, and so racism obviously is something, a topic that cannot be completely ignored. Slavery existed for many years, Jim Crow, certainly with regard to Native Americans. With regard to those with different sexual orientations, there has been these types of issues that do exist. They are significant, and certainly as people who are speaking about the history of a country, to ignore them would be to leave out a wide gap of that history. So the region says, obviously, these topics must be presented. They can't be ignored. They also mention the importance of diversity on staffs. Certainly, if people are being educated, young children and teenagers are being educated, college students, in a atmosphere where they see only people of one color, one ethnic group, they could perhaps get the wrong picture about America. And so diversity on staffs is a worthy goal that the Regents is certainly advocating for. And certainly in terms of hiring practices, it's a consideration that the Regents is bringing to the local school boards and administrators who will obviously make those decisions. Uh, and they say it's important to teach in a way that responds to the increasing diversity in student bodies. They've noticed over the years that those bodies are getting more and more diverse on the state level, particularly in certain districts. And so when we teach, we have to be responsive to that diversity. We have to understand it and try to help those students in any way we can to thrive, to do as well as every other student. And that is a huge challenge, certainly, that we face. Some students come in because of their cultural background. Maybe they are in a single parent situation. Maybe there's confusion in the home. There could be economic inequalities that they're dealing with in terms of not having proper nutrition. All of these can lead to challenges that are very difficult for teachers and for the school community, school boards. So these are certainly factors that we have to take into consideration and try to ameliorate in whatever way we can. Um, all young people in the state should feel that they belong. That would be one of the key principles, that no matter what background you come from, you should feel that you are accepted in the school community, that you belong, that you are part of that community. There should be no looking down upon anybody, discriminating against them. Maybe some people within that district are economically at a better position than others, but that should not be a cause for looking down on those students or treating them in a different way than the other students. And again, this can be a very challenging task for educators, and the Regents admit that. This is not easy to do. It's complicated. It involves trying a lot of different approaches, certainly, and this is not an easy task for our educators. Another important principle is there should be no attempt to indoctrinate. And I think this is a sticking point for many parents. They feel that their children are being indoctrinated in a certain way, and in a way that is different from the way that they would want them to be brought up, in a way that expresses their own values and beliefs. So, this avoidance of indoctrination. So, presenting opposing viewpoints certainly minimizes that, um, saying that these are different theories, that eliminates the indoctrination, helps the student to go home, to discuss it with their parents, to have a fruitful conversation about it, so that the parents obviously can have their own input, as well they should, into the formation of their children. So some of these theories, some of these positions that are being outlined, the parents might find objectionable. And it's good that they certainly present that and look at varying viewpoints, very healthy. And so when there is no indoctrination, you avoid that problem. And that certainly is a good key principle. We don't want our students being indoctrinated in any specific way, particularly a way that would the parents would find objectionable. That's certainly a key principle from the Regents. And another key principle that presenting teachings about racism and about diversity should not be done in such a way as to make the young people feel bad. So to lay a guilt trip on them. Well, slavery happened. It's your fault. You're in first grade, you're in kindergarten, but you caused it, and you're a terrible person because you caused it, and you're awful, and you should repent, and that type of thing. You certainly want to avoid that type of approach, which makes a particularly young person with a sensitive conscience feel overly guilty about things that obviously they had no control over. They weren't alive, they didn't exist, they didn't do the action. Uh, to be aware of it certainly can be important and significant at an appropriate age where they can process it. That would be important, but to be done in such a way that you are not putting blame on the particular student. If a particular student utters a racist remark or talks disparagingly about a particular group or says something about people of a different sexual orientation, well, that's a remark that they made that they are certainly accountable for and should be discussed with them and talked about, and they should face consequences for demeaning another student of a different background. But things that happened historically many years ago, that certainly would not be appropriate to lay that on a child, particularly a young child, certainly any child really, but a young child with a particularly sensitive conscience, that would be a terrible thing to do. And the Regents outlines that and says that's one of the key principles. We don't want to go around making students feel bad. It's the last thing, certainly, that we want to do. And I think many parents object to that reasonably, that they don't want to see their child, uh, you know, treated in that way where they're responsible for things that they had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with. The guidance that was given by the Regents is not made mandatory for districts. It's just guidance. And so this is helpful, I think, particularly for parents who want input on the local level. So certainly as a parent, you would want to look at that guidance that the Regents is giving to you. You would want to dialogue about it at your school board meeting. Talk to your teachers about it. Examine the curriculum. Make sure things are being presented in the appropriate way. That healthy dialogue is certainly a good thing. And the Regents, in giving these key principles, is outlining, really what is the best approach that they see from an educational point of view. But you certainly want to have a healthy dialogue. But I think very important in this discussion, a respectful dialogue. I think the objection to this in many local areas is that people get up to speak and they are shouted down, and the dialogue is not a respectful one. Police have to be called, riot control situation. You don't want to see that at a school board meeting. So we will continue this discussion in part two of our presentation.